Whoa! Welcome back to WAAAGH Wednesdays. So we got Ghaz, Gorks, Mobs, Wagons, Mega Knobs. Whoa! We're going to check out what the new meta is looking like, what the Ork lists are running. We're going to talk about some of our hard matchups, our new hard matchups, by the way. Did I make predictions? Am I a weird boy? Am I possessed by Gork and Mork? Or just Gork? How y'all doing? Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. So, had to get my headband. Sorry for being late. All right, you guys. So, like always, you know we like to do on WAAAGH Wednesdays. Start with the look at the stats. Let's look at our stats. Right away, I'm just going to show the matchups. If you want to know what it was for, I go by the Leviathan GT pack, and I'm going by 914 to 925. So, essentially, the last 2 weekends, I didn't count the third one because that one still had a mixed results from both sides of the event. Oops, right here. I got to switch this to Orks, by the way. So, we're going to just look at this. We also Orks for the last 2 weekends. Our win percentage is about 51%. That's been solid. That's where it's at, where we want to be. Maybe a little higher, sure, but overall, that's not bad for the meta switching up and us keeping our rise in the tide. Right, we're getting up there. Okay, so let's look at our new kind of how it's kind of looking at matchups. I'll give my opinions. Right. So, and we're not going to talk about how I did it at the GT today. That's not what it's about. WAAAGH Wednesday is always about WAAAGH Wednesday. If you want to ask me things, we're going to talk about down Friday. So, Adeptus Custodes. Still looking at a 25% win rate, but you can see this game counts kind of low. I think that's going to still swipe up. We're going to keep rising as we get more games into them, but they are still a challenging opponent at times if you don't bring the correct or the most meta list, as being able to still interrupt you in a fight, having great armor saves, having great amount volume of attacks. Even their small arms fire becomes very reliable when they're rerolling wounds. Okay. Then we look at Eldar. We're still like generally doing okay, but I think when you get to the top tables, they still do tend to win, right? It takes a lot of skill to be a really good Eldar player, as Eldar are kind of hard to play with now if you're trying to be too cheeky, right? This is what I wanted to talk about too. Astra Militarum coming in out of nowhere. Shouldn't surprise you if you've seen some of the GT results. At the GT I went to, Guard won. What it is really having diverse firepower is a big factor. Being able to regenerate vehicle models is a big factor. And Eldar being kind of taken out from being one of their predators really does help. So they'll run around with their 2-up armor save tanks. They'll have their their armored sentinels, being able to hold objectives, stand in the middle of the board, screen you, block you, charge into you to make you kill them, throw a bunch of hunter killer missiles, etc. And they have damage 3 indirect, so that's always going to give people problems. This Black Templar thing might become real, right? But it's too small of a game count to kind of go into too much. But we can keep our eye on it. And the Dark Angel, as those are 2 of the best Space Marine factions right now. Death Guard, even though this still is a small pool, we can see, but what I've seen as well is Death Guard does very well into us, being able to make us all -1 hit across the board, reduce our toughness is one of the things we actually admire about Orks, our toughness right now. And having indirect Plague Burst crawlers, and then the follow up with Morty, right? Morty is in some ways unkillable in some regards, right? He's killable, but by the time you do it and you invest, he might actually be a detriment sometimes. So yeah, Death Guard is a hard matchup as we expected. Imperial Knights, it is risen, can still be a challenging matchup. It really comes down to what you bring. If you don't bring tools, if you bring too much tech pieces, maybe too much fun, maybe mobs of boys, you can end up losing a game to Imperial Knights still. If you're running Beast Snaggers, you're just going to run them over. So that's why it's kind of like all over the place. And not a lot of people care to run what's meta, so they don't care to stick to just Beast Snaggers just to have a good matchup into Knights. Leagues of Voltan. So you can see this is actually, we're starting to lose against them. Not surprising if you've seen how they've slowly been finding their groove in the meta. Some people, Brandon, shout out Brandon, predicted that they would become a nuisance or an issue for Orks. I think the thing is Orks have to find a way to pressure them, essentially. I think we're going to see more knobs with power claws being introduced into the meta as a whole. As I always called them, the scalpel unit. I don't accept the idea, personally, of not having -2 AP when there's a world of 2-up armor saves and armor of contempt. We need to be able to punch out and kind of scalpel out an enemy unit from time to time to control our attrition rate. And a lot of 40K can be at the top tables, at least, where one unit is made to one-shot another unit, and that's what it does. It comes down and does its job. It gets its point return. We can't do that point for point with Leagues of Voltan all the time, especially because they have a ranged army and such. We can go more into that later. But the point is, you want to pressure them, and you do need to actually have units that can potentially one-shot their units to take them out, if you can get to that, because they're looking to take you out. And even if you do kill them, you just get grudged as well. So you need to still have the flexibility to keep scoring. It's going to be a hard thing to figure out. So we have, and I just want to say we don't have an issue with Necrons, as I didn't expect us to. And our Tau win rate is dropping. But this is something we should pay attention to, as Tau has found their groove. And when you start to play against a Tau list that knows what they're doing, yeah, they're going to start becoming an issue for sure. With there's just vast amount of firepowers, unless we figure them out first, which again might be pressure. If you're not just going straight beast snaggers, right? And then you have Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns, they're starting to go up in their percentage, how much we beat them as they got nerfed. And then Tyranids are hanging tight here around the 50s. So not surprised, because there's so many kind of detachments. Some of Orcs do great into Tyranid invasion fleet and have difficulties a little bit with some others, maybe. We'll talk about that. Right now, I'll take a look at the chat before we go into some of the lists. But the first list I will start is Flying Monkey Con. Boop, boop, boop. So this was the biggest GT. And I'll just go directly over to the Orc list right here, and Bill Stein. And now look at the chat, see what you guys got to say real quick. I accept this excuse. America. Whoa. Let's go. Flat 10 flash kits, build paint, 2 weeks. Wish me luck. All right. I wish you luck from Gork and Mork, but that's quite a task. You better focus hard, because those guys are kind of nifty and annoying to put together. Great bits, though. Uh-oh. October is nearly upon us. Yes, it is. And I look forward to it. Usual gets in chat. Oh. As both a Voltan player and an Orc player, the secret to taking out Voltan is to put baby in corner. Yep. Voltan and their deployment, and stiff them to the primary. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm assuming is the way to be Leagues of Voltan. It's about figuring out how to do it exactly. How much can we take? What units can stand in the open? Such like that. But yes, thank you for saying that. That is what I think, but figuring it out will be interesting, right? And then, James, I didn't forget about you. There's actually a Def Kopta in one of these lists. How about that? I didn't even forget about you. Yes, there is. That coming. All right. Nobody's seen that coming, to be honest. Let's see. I struggle against Shooty Guard. Tau has to be bad. Yeah, well, Shooty Guard is real, because they have high damage and regenning unit, which is something that Tau doesn't necessarily have. Whoa! Trying to get my wand. Oh, let me say this. And I've been having great success with Grots recently. You can talk more about that. Grots have been making their little appearances here and there in GT performing lists. It might be just because they're hard to find, etc. But having that movement, the bladed wounds, a bunch of rockets, I'm into them too. But you tell me more about it. And yes, Tau, we do need to kill as much as possible and get there as early as possible, as Tetros make it just a compounding effect. Okay. So let's talk right here about this first list, and then we'll go back into the chat. So with Bill Stein's list, might catch you little guys, little funny bunnies. So we got Ghaz. So Ghaz remaking his appearance, followed by Captain Badrock. Boys in one battle line, few trucks. We got a Flash Git unit, a Gorkanaut. Yes, a Gorkanaut. I was thinking about I just got one of these from the boss when I went to the GT, and I was like, I really want to play this, and now it's becoming a reality, huh? 2 10-man use aggression, always what I would consider. And then we have Mega Knobs. So not that I'm a weird boy for real, but I was saying Mega Knobs might start making an appearance in the meta, as we are coming more towards shooting armies, and we just feel like, hey, maybe we need to stand in the mid board, walk through buildings, not get clogged up, or maybe you just don't always want to run Squig Hog Boys. It's not that it's one's wrong or the other. This is another way to play, and I'm glad to show it. I'm glad he went out there and performed with it. But he does still have Squig Hog Boys. They're just not the focal point of his army, okay? And then followed by 2 Storm Boy units and 1 War Bikers unit. This is like the dynamic trio right here. Pretty much on most successful Orc lists, you'll see 2 Storm Boys and a Biker, or just 3 Storm Boys, or 2 Bikers and a Storm Boy, stuff like that. So yeah, take a look at this list. There's the list, 3 trucks, Ghaz, and we'll directly start looking at his matchups. So speaking of his first matchup, it was a green skin on green screen scrap. This looks like a more traditional Orc list, right? You guys, what some of you guys might actually be expecting. We got the Beast Boss on Squigosaur, Edwapa Kill Chopper, Mazrog, Naban Smasher Squig, Naban Smasher Squig, War Boss, follow me, lads. This looks like a list I'd write like 5-6 weeks ago. So we got B-Snagas, trucks. So we got 4 trucks. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 trucks, 2 Gretchen units, the Knob Scalpel unit, 1 brick of Squighog Boys, another one without the upgrades, Storm Boys, Bikers, and then War Bikers. So this literally, I'm so sure a lot of you people wrote something like this or you've seen something like this. This looks like a list I would have run maybe 5-6 weeks ago or such. Because it has the knobs, it has the buggies. I mean, sorry, the buggies. It has the Squighog Boys, but it still has a good amount of trucks to play the mission and move up the field and feel kind of secure in there, right? What I am a little surprised to see on this list, though, is there's no Beast Boss on foot, just because you already paid for the Beast Snagger Boys. But hey, he decided not to bring it. But that was his first matchup. So it's interesting that you see this Mega Knobs list matchup would be considered go into what was considered a pretty traditional Ork list. You had the Beast Boss on Squigosaur. You had there's Mazrog. You have Knobs. You have Knobs. You have Squighog Boys. You got Beast Snaggers. You have 4 trucks. So it's looking like a very typical Ork list with the same Ork scoring units, very similar at least. Yet it lost. So that would have been an interesting matchup to witness. Bill did score 100 points against that other Ork list. So keep that in mind. It's not that it was necessarily like a super close if he did score 100, right? That means he was getting away with what he wanted to do. Now we'll go on to the second matchup. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Pay attention. This is the Mega Knob list we're using. So we have Space Marines, Salamanders, Gladius Task Force. He has the Apothecary in the Artificer armor, a Lieutenant, Primaris Lieutenant. I'm pretty sure this stacks Bolter Discipline with lethals and such like that from having it on the Lieutenant. We got Volkan Hussein, Eradicators, Hellblaster. This is what I am seeing more being used now, the Hellblaster brick. When you stack that with the Lieutenant, this is what the Lieutenant would be stick to. I'm like 100% sure about that. Then we have 2 units of Inceptors with the Bolters. Bolter Strength 5. They get rerolls to wounds, sustain 2 to hit. And then we have the Land Raider Redeemer. That's with the flame one, the flame cannon. That's like a strength 6 cannon, -2, 2 damage. I'm pretty sure, or it's -1. But I can't remember off the top of my head. The Storm Thunderstrike Speeder. This gives them a buff, a Space Marines as well, with its ability. And then 2 Whirlwinds for indirect fire, multi-damage. It's like D6 +2 or something like that. And then the Caladius Assassin, of course. So this is what is more of a meta Space Marine list. It still has the Whirlwind. It has the buffing for the Storm Strike Speeder, which can also move and play the edge of the table. A Land Speeder for its Flamer and ability to kind of be a bully in the middle of the table if you don't have anything that's just straight Squighog it out. 2 Inceptor Squads that come in from Emula. Hellblasters to pick up said Squighog Bomb. And a couple Eradicators to try to get that real reliable damage into anything that vehicles by being getting real roll hits, reroll to wound. So this is a pretty common Space Marine list that you'll see around probably. It even kind of gets its way up the table if it misses Orcs, but it didn't miss Orcs this time. He did have a kind of lower scoring game though, right? That much firepower, the indirect stuff like that. You do have to pay attention to stuff. It can start to annihilate you if you let it. Since he really wasn't running that Squighog Boy Edwapa kill choppa potential that he could have just ran in there with Squighog Boys, ignored the Flamer and just killed it, right? Squighog Boys will run into that Flamer and still punch that Land Raider down. So that's what you'll see is a little difference if you're playing a not meta list, right? You'll still win against, he still won against, but it was like a little bit harder of a matchup than maybe other Orc players would be expecting. So we have Demons. So interesting. Something else Squighog Boys would run over typically. He's playing up into Demons again. So we got a Bloodthirster, Chaos Prince of Chaos. Demon Prince of Chaos. The Red Master's Throne. This is actually just like a fighty character. It's literally a throne. It's a corn. So it's pretty punchy and it has some self buffing capabilities. And then Scarbrand. Bloodletters. Okay, I like to see those coming out of Deep Strike. Blood Crusher. So this is Demon's version of a Squighog Boy, if you guys just want to imagine. They're on a dude on a mount. He's T7 with 4 wounds and a 4-up invuln. The guy on the top doesn't have 2 damage attack, or the guy on top has 2 damage attacks, and the mount itself is like 1 damage. That's one of the main differences. And they can deep strike, not preserve, they deep strike. So he brought a couple of those, another one of those, a smaller unit, and then Flesh Hounds, and the Skull Cannon. Probably just had points, just wanted to shoot with something, you know. A little bit different of a Demons list. Well, where people were wondering what's going to happen with Demon list. That's another iteration that we've seen with Khorne, but he did beat him with a 72 score. Going to his 4th matchup. This is the one he dropped. Take a guess. 1, 2, 3. Who it was? What did he lose it to? To Tau. So a part of me saying I would bring Mega Knobs is to combat Tau, but here we are. He played it to Tau and he got combated himself. So, oops, I guess that part of my prediction was not right. So at least we'll see, right? As the meta develops. This is all in jest. So we have Commander Farsight, Commander Shadow Sun. This is lone operative, of course. Annoying if you guys didn't know. Commander in a battle suit, sticks to the battle suit, and then a Firesight team. We got a broadside battle suits, crisis battle suits. Okay. And don't worry, here we go. Another crisis battle suits. Okay, so this guy's just going straight in with broadsides, crisis, then ghost keels, crew hounds, piranha, and then churches. That's all he had points for, of course. So piranhas, this is their version of like a transport, essentially. Or just like a very look at that, 55 points, and this thing is like, I believe, T10, if not T9, but it's one of their version of vehicles. I think it actually has scout as well. It can move up the table. Then you just have a ton of battle suits that are compounding their effects with each other, destroying people, just straight up shooting them. He's bringing 10 missile pods. The generator, the shield drone gives them, I believe, in 4-up invuln or another wound or some mixture of the shield generator and the shield drone, something like that, gives their durability buffs. But this is just laying down the hate. He has just enough to hold you back with the with the piranhas walking up to the field, and then the other smaller units of suits. And then by the time you get their turn 3, they're just annihilating you with all these battle suits. So Tower's still going to be an issue. Let's look at the score. But he did points. The top player is right here, and he scored 94 that game. Okay. And then we'll go into his 5th matchup, and we have 3.5 lists today, guys. Just so you know. Another Space Marine list, Blood Angels. Sanguinor, he can come out of Deep Strike and directly into combat. He's hilarious and decent. And then we have Apothecary Biologist with Bolter Discipline. Bolter Discipline's about every list. With the new and improved Aggressor Squad, probably has the Bolter Discipline guy on him. 2 Basilisk Dreads. Death Company Marines with jump packs. Death Company with jump packs. Inceptors, Infiltrators, a Redeemer, and then 2 Whirlwinds, and then some Gladiatorial Inquisitorial Henchmen. There we go. So once he lost the game, he got knocked down a little bit and just ran over the Blood Angels player with the 100-point score. And his last matchup was into Tyrannid. So this was Nexus, the one of the new high fleets. This is the one that has the ability to reduce AP by 1. I think get +1 to advance charges, stuff like that. So we have the Death Leaper, Hive Tyrant, Nero Tyrant. All right. Nero Tyrant has been just making his appearance more and more for his utility. I'm always a fan of the Hive Tyrant, and the Death Leaper seems to be just great for his points efficiency. So these are 3 of the most commonly leaders I'll see on Tyrannid list now. Of course, you have the Biovore for that nice, easy scoring Spore Mine. 2 Exocrines for great efficiency of damage 3. Maliceptor, of course. Neurolictors, and then a Norn Emissary, most likely being followed by one of those Maliceptors. Pyovores, and very cheap, 30 points. Ripper Swarms, Zoanthropes, and Zoanthropes. So he has the Zoanthropes for las cannons. He has some of these Pyovores. That's very, very cheap. And the Norn Emissary, the very new Tyrannid model, he'll give himself a 5-up Feel No Pain when he declares an objective and 15 OC when he gets to it, in case you haven't heard. Neurolictors, you could just tag an objective and they'll start making you take morale checks just over and over again for battle shock. So yeah, it's a bit of the new Tyrannid way to play, right? Remember that guy would have a -1 reduce AP. The Squighog boys typically would go into him. Even with that -1 AP and the 5 Feel No Pain, it might be an issue. But when you're not running them, you actually have a strength 12 Mega Knobs with -3 AP. There might be a chance if you suicide them enough of them in there, they'll kill it. But he did get a 61-point win game, so it was a challenging game. And I'm assuming he actually didn't kill the Norn. I'm assuming he just ignored him and killed everything else, which is how most people would actually play into the Norn right now. And sometimes you don't have that option. So great job by Bill. We're going to go straight up into the next list. I'll take a peek at chat, see if one of you guys said something. Don't worry, guys. We have Kyle Pearson. This is a typically more Ork truck list. The other fun lists are on the next one as well, but I wanted to show kind of the adaptation of the Ork truck list. Time to bring out the mech war. Well, we'll see about that, right? This guy's proven it's possible. Remember, there's a Gorkanaut on this list and Mega Knobs. So yeah, we just want also shout out to the Mecha Dread. Mecha Dread's awesome. Who are the best targets for Bad Rook and Freebooters? On the turn, they hop out of the truck and pop lethals. I want to make sure I'm trading. I would assume I'll Overwatch the next turn. That's when target priority comes into a play. But what you really want to do is find a lane where they will be useful for the Overwatch. That's typically where I end up kind of putting them. There's a lot of times in the game in the meta that armies will kind of be able to redeploy, switch around. Maybe they go first and just run away from that spot you thought you would be, and now you're not really looking to hunt down something with the flash kits. You're looking to control a portion of the board by disembarking into the lane that you choose to Overwatch. So that's actually subject to change. But what I will say is when you're willing to pop lethals and you're going to wound something on 5s, go ahead and shoot it anyways. You're going to kill it. As long, even unless it has like a built-in 2-up armor save and then has armor of contempt and keeps that 2-up armor save. If you're making something even take 3-up or 4-ups, you can still very well kill it. Maybe it's a brigand or something like that. You're not getting exactly the point cost trade, but you are dismissing what would typically be an orc problem from a distance sometimes. So that's what it is. Is actually using in the control part of the board, in my opinion. I love the Meganauts models. Just wish with dual kill saws you got more than 2 attacks, right? 2 kill saws is insulting. I mean, 2 attacks with kill saws is very insulting and needs to go up to 3. If they were at 3, it would be no question about how it would be. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Hey guys, listening to while I'm rolling another truck. Well, this is a list for you, WAAAGH. No, not really, but it could be a variation, right? What is this? Boop. Can a rocket gun line trade against Shooty Guard or Tau? I would say no, but in some ways maybe. No, because the Shooty Guard typically is going to have Lehman Russes, which you're going to have to be wounding them on 5s, and they're going to have very efficient into you, and they're really not that expensive either. There's Scout Sentinels coming in and being able to throw their Hunter Killer missiles, then charge into you and be killed by your punchy units, and then regenning them and then shooting the Hunter Killer missiles again. So I don't think so. And they would typically, you think, have the issue with that is that at their 24-inch range for their rockets too. So even on the Grot tanks, unless you're running up the board into them, right, it's not really always the case. So I would say no, but that doesn't mean Grot tanks are bad at all by any means. Sorry, this was a comment. No, I would say they're not bad by any means, but I wouldn't want to be gunline for gunline with them necessarily, you know. But it is an idea because I was thinking that too. Now we're gonna not good enough. Okay, so Kyle Pearson. He's like another iteration or variation of what we call the Ork truck spam, right? So let's take a look at the updated version of this. It's Beast Boss, Waaaagh, Warboss, and Warboss. That's interesting and new. People are just deciding I'm going to bring all the Warbosses since they're cheap. So he put Beast Snaggers here, and then he has boys, and boys. So he has 6 units of boys, 2 units of 10 Beast Snaggers. He has 6 trucks, which I assume get boys and Warbosses. And then the battle wagon is where I'm assuming, or maybe he puts 1 and 1. That would be interesting as well, right? So that way the battle wagon kind of choose which unit's disembarking to kill, what problem it has. The battle wagon is for the 20, a 10, and a 10, so they can have enough for those 22 capacity. Very cool, right? 6 trucks. Instead of paying for the big tracks, he just brought a battle wagon. And then we have 2 units of Gretchen and 1 Stormboy unit. You don't end up needing the trifecta of Stormboys and such. You just need 20 grass to screen just well enough, and Stormboys to deep strike in case you get a secondary in one of the corner of the boards that you can do with, right? Because at this point, you have so many trucks and just boys that are hopping out that you should just be doing objectives with the trucks or the boys themselves. So this is just a quick look at what this would look like now. And the Warboss is in there so that you have something to punch with. Boys can actually somewhat respect people. The boys can be somewhat respected by having the Warboss in there. So let's look at this new iteration of the Ork truck spam. So this first game, just say right now, he got 100 points. And he got 100 points because it's into Grey Knights. What I mean by that is when, as an Ork player, when you can have a list that takes over the board and stops them from just dropping where they want up and down the table, and you're just kind of ignoring the fact that they're trying to kill you, you block them out from primary, you're taking over the board. But especially if you're in trucks, right, and they don't reliably destroy vehicles unless they bring a lot of librarians, and even then they can whiff, because you can see he brought 2 here. Ork truck spam would work into this. So we have Brother Captain, 2 librarians, and then Caldor Drago. I believe he assists them with deep striking. Terminators, a small unit, another small unit, another small unit. Only 1 unit of strikes. Inceptors. So just more of, there's like the jetpack versions of Grey Knights. 1 Paladin brick, And Inquisitor Kodias. Yeah. Inquisitor Kodias is annoying. You might see it in more lists as he steals CP from you and he has damage 3 dev wound, I believe, in his hammer. But he, as you gain CP, he didn't steal from you. As you gain CP, he allows the Grey Knight player to gain CP as well. He might become a more popular Inquisitor in the meta as a whole. But he did put up 100 points. Now his second game, which he did end up losing, was to T-Suns. Yeah, and it was a great scoring game. So I would love to know what happened, but let's see what happens here. We got Armon, Exhausted Sorcerer on discs, Infernal Master, Magnus the Red, Thousand Sun Sorcerer. That looks just like a very typical Thousand Suns list that we talked about like for 5 weeks straight a month ago. Rubric Marines with Warp Flamers, Rubric a small unit, another small unit with Warp Flamers, and the final unit. So there's 4 units, 2 of them are 3-mans, one's a big, 3-mans, 3 10-man, 5-mans, and 1 big one. So we have just 1 Rhino, the Mutalisk Vortex Beast, another Mutalisk Vortex Beast. These guys are very efficient, very good, and Zangor Enlightened. So it could just be that in this situation, since you don't have anything reliably killy, Magnus can kind of almost bully the Orc truck list. He can occupy a portion of the board and just kill everything and not care about what's standing there. And then you still have all the efficiency from all these flamers. When the boys do start to disembark, you're just picking them up really quickly. As for the Mutalisk Vortex, most likely just pop a bunch of trucks too. Might even pop the battle wagon right away. So he did actually end up losing that that matchup, interesting enough. So we'll go into the third one, and remember, this is the new version of the Orc spam. So Tyranid Invasion, truck spam. Invasion Fleet, Hive Tyrant, Old One-Eye. Old One-Eye with this have a Feel No Pain, the ability to destroy vehicles. I think he's like strength 12 and damage D6 plus 2 or something like that. Gargoyles for their double movement ability. Very annoying. Biovores with the Spore Launcher. We got the so he actually did bring Carnifexes with Old One-Eye. That's cool. Thematic. Only 1 Exocrine. Definitely like to see more. So Raveners have the ability to come off on the player's turn and then come back on, I believe, in the beginning of take them off at the beginning of their turn, and then put them back on in the same turn. So Raveners have essentially kind of like teleportation. I'm just kidding. But they can be pulled off the table and brought back on the table immediately. I actually ended up playing against these. So you brought 2, and they have a boatload of attacks at strength 5 -1, I believe, or strength 6. Strength 6 -1. Raveners to another 6-man Ravener unit, and then a small Ravener unit. 2 Ripper Swarms, because you need the Ripper Swarms. Trigon, Zoanthrope. Okay. So Trigons are like a T11, 14 wound, boring monster where it can just come in from deep strike and such. So most likely being used to strategic rapid ingress, excuse me. So he did end up putting up 100 points into that list. Just having the truck spam utility go all over the table. If he went first, the deep striking shenanigans matter much less. And then he just starts screening you out with the trucks. You pop the truck, the boys beat up whatever falls on is trying to run with them. The Raveners get beat up by the boys and the Warboss, such like that. So I'm not surprised. And it's kind of a fun way to play them because he has so many Warbosses, to be honest. I do appreciate that. And the battle wagon, I'm in love with the battle wagon. I'm going through these quick guys because I want to get the last two lists as well. That's why I'm being kind of straightforward. All right, so we got the Ultramarines, Biologist. Sorry, I can't speak. Marius Calgar gives them more CP. The Big Aggressor Squad, which is most likely where Biologist goes, but I'd like to see what else is here. Blade Guard Veteran Squad, Eradicators, Lancer, Hellblasters, only a small unit. Infiltrators. There's a different version of Land Raider. This one has the God Hammer Last Cannon. Redemptor Dreadnought, Repulsor Executioner. I'd say this is a bit of a less meta list, but either way, he still took it out. It has NT vehicle and such, but it didn't matter. And then he played Chaos Knights at the end. So you played a Knight Rampager, Brigand. These guys have their long range 24 Meltas, and then they have like a chain gun that's like a assault cannon essentially. And he brought, what's happening? How many did he move? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he brought 5. Okay, Carnivore. So he just brought a bunch of the small ones, only one big one. And then he did tech for some demon allies. So Fleshhounds, Nurglings for that -1 hit, Blue Scribes for their ability to score and be tiny, and the Changeling. Okay. It has potential, I would say, but you see just when you bring all small word dogs is when you see a lot of efficiency from these Knights list. A Knight Rampager is nothing wrong with it. It's not bad. The Knights do have the ability to go through terrain and such, so it could be a little bit of a nuisance, but he managed it by just still, let's see, 92 points. So having enough of the war bosses. I would like to see how that list went. I'm sure the beast bosses got out, maybe punched out the rampager, maybe took out a little baby knight, the war bosses and the boys, and having tank shock and just running into them and attempting throwing grenades at them and just tearing them down by weight of dice. And a couple power claws might actually work. So interesting enough, he had to end up winning that. I would have liked to see how that game went, but that was what it was. So that is the last look at the new version. Oh, and he does have mods, of course. Version of the Ork truck spam. Just 2 beast bosses, 3 war bosses, boys, snaggers, trucks, battle wagons. Boom, grats. Very clean, very simple. I'm sure he's an excellent player, though. Now we'll go into... Oh, oops. So there's actually 2 Ork lists here. I'll look at the chat real quick. There's 2 Ork lists. So this is number 4. He's the one who get a little higher than this guy by a very small margin of points. And they both have kind of very different lists. So I still wanted to show both because they're in the same area. So it'll be easy to jump back and forth between them. Let me see. Boop. Have to be extra careful with Grey Knights because the 1 CP strat dropping within 3 inches. Have to be much more careful with your screens. Yeah, you have to just be willing sometimes to drop them in the corner of a board and be like, yeah, you can come in 3 inches, come in 3 inches over there, all the way over there. That's really what you want to do. 100% right. You will need to just pay attention. That's what you end up doing. What I say when I'm playing Grey Knights is you're playing the movement game. You're not necessarily as worried about killing. It's more than ever that your movement skills matter and your ability to screen and pre-measure everything is what matters the most. When you're playing against Grey Knights. If you have a board control kind of army, you have enough durability for their small arms fire, since you know they don't have great anti-tank, there's a good chance you can just occupy the board on Grey Knights and then eventually just beat them by that because they're really just trying to move all over the table and not interact with people. So just play movement well and you have a chance to destroy them. 30 shots, 4+, sustained hits from a truck, kills a lot of stuff. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it just does. I like to get to disembark them so I can overwatch them, right? But we can just remember you can't do that from it. But if you stand still with that truck and no one pops a truck, yes, you'll be able to do that. Oh, Zuper gets a super kill. Yes, they are. Flash kits have been showing their way. And yes, I love seeing battle wagons too. You know, I love battle wagons. Whoa, I love battle wagons. So I love seeing a battle wagon on the list. That's just me. I'm really into them. So let's go into Bijon. So again, we see Ghaz, and we see the ugliest model in the Ork line, Mad Dog Grotznik. Oh, what's up with the scoring system? I should talk to that. It's not what's wrong with it. It's where they're at. So this is their event. So yeah, these guys are like in Sweden or something like that. Or the Netherlands, right? I don't know where that is. I'm not gonna click it. So this is probably like WTC, different kind of scoring system where they go based off 20 points. And then you can like see right here, these are draws. If you get a 10, both people start with like 10 points and they go either direction. Who ends up with more points ends up winning, something like that. So it's a different kind of scoring system in that way, but it's still very similar to 40K. This when you go to the world champions, the team champions, they play with this kind of scoring system. So that's why I did show it at the end. So if people didn't like it, but hey guys, there's more people than Americans to play 40K. We can look all around. We can look everywhere, okay? Because when when Art of War went and played internationally, they were playing this scoring system as well. So it very much is relevant to what is strong, right? But I'm glad you asked the question. So glad you asked the question because I should have mentioned that. So thank you. I don't know who that is, but check that guy out too. So let's look at his matchups here. Remember, do we look at the Ork list? Sorry, I got a little distracted there. So let's look at this list. We didn't finish with that. We have Ghazghul, Mad Urthraka. We got Mad Doc Grotznik with the ugliest model in the Ork line. A Painboss with the Feel No Pain. Follow me, lads. Weird Boy. And then Zagra Wartsnagger. Yeah, he remade his appearance, you guys. There we go. You say even though Grots aren't T5, he's still useful. So we got the 20-band brick of Beastnagger boys. 20-man Beastnagger boys with the Feel No Pain, of course. We have another unit of Beastnagger boys, another small unit of Beastnagger boys, 2, 3, 4, and then I think that's 5 units of 10-man boys, followed by another brick of 20 boys, most likely with the Weird Boy. Another big unit of Gretchen. Of course, that goes with Zagra, I would assume. A 10-man unit of Gretchen. 2 Mega Knobs, which we've been talking about on the Ork Discord quite a bit. It's a Ork Mega Knobs is just for 60 points, guys, some people really will pay that for, like, not Ripper Swarm necessarily, but they'll pay very cheap for small units that can walk up into the board, hide in a little corner of a piece of terrain, and start to do actions. So that might be what he did here. The Mech Workshop, it actually does screen your backfield. It counts for screening, but it also gives your army like cover that's going to start hiding behind it. They're going to treat it like terrain, get to deploy right on the line possibly, and still not get their movement impeded because you could just drive right through that thing, right? Because as you see on this list, he does not have really many orc vehicles at all, or any at all. Sorry, he doesn't have any orc vehicles at all on this list. Okay, so actually, he probably put the 20-man unit with Mad Dog Grotznik and used the Weird Boy for the 10-man unit so he could score. Excuse me, but yeah, very very odd list. I wanted to show it to you guys. Yes, this is what you see in other parts of the world. They play 40k very differently. Still have but very differently, but this is how you can play as well, right? You don't see Squig Hog Boy in sight. You got Ghazghkull, Mad Doc, Painboss. You're playing for the Feel No Pain on the Feel No Pain with the ability to fall back and charge, and this has the ability to run into you with the actual harder hitting Snagga Boys. Weird Boys, you can stick it to a 10-man unit or by himself for scoring, and then Zogrot, so you can start taking over the board quickly, cheaply. No wagons, no trucks. He just said, nope, not paying for that. Brought a big unit, brought this unit just to stand in a corner somewhere, and the Mech Workshop to give all these guys cover when they just stand on the line, I guess. Just straight up, or wherever he was choosing to do with it. It was very interesting. But I wanted to show you that list because he did have success with it. So he was just flexing on people. Let's look at his first matchup real quick. We have World Eaters. World Eaters, 1 Jackal Brick. Let's see. This Demon Prince right here, I'm very sure that he gives an aura of a 4-up invuln within 6 inches. He does have Angron and Karn the Betrayer. So these guys, when you just take a big unit like this and you just string it out, you give this whole unit a 4-up invuln, and then it also has a 5-up Feel No Pain because you just have to have one model within its aura range. When they wrote this book, they were still playing 9th edition. They didn't know what's happening. Jackals again. And then 1 unit of Khorne Berserkers, probably just for Mr. Karn. Exalted 8-bound. This is their only version of multi-damage, but there's kind of lower amount of attacks with those chain fists. Rhinos, and then 3 Brigands. So yeah, whenever I was been talking about this a while, whenever I see a good successful World Eaters list, I usually see Brigands in them for the most part. I don't see Angron all the time, but I will see Brigands, and if you do see Angron, he's more about that pressure list with the Skull Takers, Lord of Skulls, as we've seen on some other lists. So I get what that list was about, but Bjorn put up 20 points, just so he pretty much one-sided him that game. Second matchup, Chaos Knights. We have the Knight Tyrant, War Dog Stalker. Then their battle lines. So we got Brigand. Oh, I actually didn't see which one this is. That's the new. Is this the new one that came from Forge World? Interesting. I gotta look at that. It looks like it just shoots though with extra hard. That's all I want to do. And then 1 Nurgling Bomb. Okay, probably just had the points left over for that. Not the most necessarily meta list, but here it is. He still scored all right. You would think against a Knights, maybe he wouldn't be able to tear him down, but he did. Then we got this third matchup. We're going to go through this quick because I want to look at the other list too. Guard, Astra Militarum. We got Gaunt's Ghost. What's up? Lord Sola Leontis. I do understand this as he has great buffing abilities and he makes them reliable to actually kill stuff with your Lehman Russes, and he gives them a bunch of CP. That way they can keep regenning. So he's pretty much an auto take for them. A Platoon Command Squad, Ursula Creed, Catachans, Infantry, not surprised. Chimera, and then we got the Earthshaker batteries, Hellhounds with this great ability to make enemies, make them ignore cover for whatever they flame. So they're going to flame you and then take away their ability, your cover for anybody else to shoot at. 2 Lehman Russ Demolishers, that way they get the effect from Leontis, and then Manticores with their damage 3 annoying indirect. There you go. Rogel Dorn Battle Tank, just a very durable tank. Most likely he tries to throw it in the middle of the board and see if you can kill it. And Scout Sentinels, just to go around. Scout, give their indirect the ability to indirect better, and then probably brings it back, most likely. So you don't see the most Scout Sentinels on here, which I would think is a weakness, but that's just my opinion. So let's look into his fourth matchup, which was Necrons. We have the Catan Shard, the Nightbringer. I don't see the enhancements on him, interesting enough. Emotech Stormlord, Orkin Diviner. Overlord, Technomancer, and then Catan, another one. Okay. We got 20 units of warriors with their one baby crypto thrall, another unit of crypto thralls with their brick of lich guard, followed by swarm, tomb blades. This is good for, I think I like these for scoring. I don't know about the swarms necessarily, but it seems like a lot of people are really into the swarms. Then you have the Reanimator and Doomsday Arc. Very standard, pretty straightforward Necron list. A ton of characters, some Katans, and then a few bricks. Orcs don't typically always have an issue with that, but okay. And then let's see his 5th matchup. It looks like this is the one he dropped into Tyranids, and it's the Vanguard Onslaught detachment. So I'm assuming that the Tyranid player went first. So we have Death Leaper, Winged Prime, Old One Eye, Flyrant. Okay. I don't have a copy of the Tyranid Codex anymore, so I don't know exactly which all these enhancements do anymore, but I do know what Vanguard Onslaught does. They have the ability to fall back and charge, and they can ignore any rules to pretty much the typical time you would come in from either Deep Strike or Strategic Reserves. It's one turn ahead. They have the capability to. So they can come in turn 1. They can come in, pretty much earlier than you ever want them to, and try to take over the board like that. 3 Gargoyles unit for that moving around and having double movement, essentially. 1 Ripper Swarm Lictor, so you can get into the middle of the board. 3 Neural Lictors is just too efficient. Everybody wants to bring a bunch of these guys all the time. Just stand on objectives and make you fail Battle Shock. Put 3 of them on one objective and take it 3 times. You probably fail, according to math. Pyrovore, because Pyrovores are 30 points. That's silly. Biovores, 3 Zoanthropes for those last cannons. He just 1 Carnifex with Crushing Claws, a little odd. And then the Warriors. Once you hurt something, the Warriors can kind of tear it down to finish it off. I believe they get reroll to wounds if it's the ones that I'm thinking about. So, yeah. That was his 4th matchup, and he ended up losing that. So I assume the Tyranid player went first because this is just a lot of boys and pain, and pain feel no pains. So you get these kind of units that can make you feel Battle Shock. They can run up to you and get in your, kind of just stand there and charge you to make you kind of bait, move around the table. It's kind of, you would think this is weird that this would actually beat that kind of list of orcs, right? You would think that kind of orc list runs this over for the most part. It does have a Flyrant, which is less common than you would see before. It does have Old One Eye, which is good for punching and be a little durable, but this is not something that you would typically think orc boys would have an issue with. But these melee warriors are quite reliable when they're rerolling wounds and such, and they get a good amount of attacks. That could be a counter that he had, and maybe just his characters as a whole. But surprisingly, yeah, he did lose this one. I'm assuming possibly because the Tyranid player went first and just started pressuring him. I'm not very sure what happened there, but he did actually lose that game. And then the 6th one, he just put up a 20 into World Leaders again. So you pretty much knew how to play them already. It's a very similar list. This is like a turn 1 version of the list, I believe, where they try to charge you turn 1. Master of Indirect Combat right here. He essentially just annihilates any character in the game, including Maz. He gets D3 more attacks and damage to his weapons. And then he rerolls hits and wounds. He gets devastating and he gets fight first. So he'll put like 24 wounds into Maz, which is mathematically just enough to kill him. So we have Jackals, Corn Berserkers, a small unit Corn Berserkers, Rhinos, a bound, Forge Mauler Fiend. I'd rather just see 2 Mauler Fiends than just see this Forge Fiend on here. It doesn't really give me buffs, and I don't know what this. That's a little fun little ally, really. Exalted A bound, they're all right. As for a whole, if you don't see like Mauler Fiends, Brigands, the Demon Prince, or that version that turn 1 charges you with the Lord of Skulls is not what's necessarily meta right now for World Eaters, but they're just trying to figure out their stride. So great job to Bajorn. I'm gonna look at chat real quick, and then we'll look at the second list. I'll just pull it up right now so you guys have something to look at. But this is the second list I wanted to look at. It's Beast Boss, and Squigosaur, Maz, Nabas, Master Squig, 2 units of Warbosses. All right. Before I go deeper into it, actually, I'm gonna leave it right there. You can think in your head what you think it's gonna be. Well, I'll look at chat real quick. Boop, 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 boop. It's just a massive FU to any tanks and monsters that are on board. Big freaking guns. Yeah, that's I can see that being for sure. What's going on? He said, "Grots are better than boys. Fight them. You heard them, boys. You heard them. Crump them." Hey, Green Tide list. This looks great. There are some Green Tide lists. Big Boss took 1. We'll talk about that though in my recap to this event too. Green Tide lists are playable, you guys. You just have a couple matchups here and there, but if you're a great player, you can figure it out. Snotlings need rules on 40K. They had models in fantasy. Snots only exist in the lore in the Grimtark future. Okay, and we need baby squigs and swarms. I'd like to see that, huh? Everybody else has swarm models. I'd like to have like a swarm of squigs or snotlings. How about that? But they already have nurglings. Just call them snotlings. I don't know. Swarms are good. I think annoying and can explode into mortal wounds. Yeah. And they move block. And if they're the nurgling ones, they get in the way, get -1 hit. Yeah. Okay. I guess for our count, that's cool. I mean, like if you feel like it, only if it's worth it. All right. So Beast Boss is on foot. Beast Boss on foot with Follow Me, lads. Beast Boss and Squigosaur, Mazrog, Namnot, Smash Squid, and Wappa Skill Chopper, Warboss, Kenny Blue. So ability to fall back. He has paid for the 3 enhancements. He thought it was worth it, or he had odd points left over. 2 units of Beast Snaggle Boys for those Beast Bosses. 4 trucks, and boom, the Death Copters. I told you I'd bring the Death Copters to you. You talked about them enough in chat. I brought them to you, okay? I didn't forget. No, I'm just kidding. He obviously just did good on his own. But I wanted to make sure I showed the list real quick. That's why I was kind of in a hurry. Gretchen, 1 unit of knobs, but then he did the unthinkable. He brought the 2nd unit of knobs, but it's small. Come on, Chad. We talked about this before. A small unit of knobs with the War Boss. I guess that's the thing too. If you're not worried about Overwatch, go ahead. It's easier to get in there, I guess. Cheaper. Can still punch her pretty well. And it doesn't have to punch into something necessarily too expensive, because now it's not really that expensive anymore. It's 170. And then the truck, of course. Squig Hog Boys, just 1 brick. I like that. Sometimes you see these kind of new leak lists, but they still bring the Squig Hog Boys. That way they have at least 1 viable way to punch out a real problematic enemy monster, or just like a land raider. Just throw it off the board. And then just 1 unit of Storm Boys, because they have the Death Copters and they have 4 trucks. So yeah, this was a different kind of orc list in its own way, but it was still very much the samey when you see it was a lot of Beast Snaggle Boys, right? Still though, he decided I'm going to bring Death Copters, and he did. So we'll just look very quickly at what he did, and then we'll move on to the closing. So we see he went to Custodes right away. So it's not like he had super easy matchups right away. Custodes, even though they've come down overall in the meta. Remember, guys, things are matchup dependent. When this army is built all to their ability traits into just fighting, that's why they went down in the meta. Everybody's like, oh, I could just shoot you now? I can shoot you off the table? Yeah, for orcs, we're still like, yeah, we still have to interact with you on the table and on the board. So they still retain some of their strength with us. I still think we win, have the advantage. But with that change, I'm just saying that this makes them still something you have to pay attention to. You can lose. We've seen that in the stats. So Blade Champion, Shield Captain with Ceaseless Hunter, Trajan Velotis. And then now these small units, very much nice nerf that they're not 9-man units with crazy buffs anymore, just one-shotting everything. Prosecutors, Alaris Custodians, very good with their rerolls, durable, punchy, they're overall good. Wardens with their once per game, they could just decide we're gonna have 4 Feel No Pains. He did that twice. So I think it's a perfectly fine Custodes list. I think having triple tanks is probably a little bit better, but that's just my opinion. So we get into Thousand Suns. So he played, we've seen this, Armon, Exalted Sorcerers on disc, Infernal Master, Magnus, Thousand Sun Sorcerer. So not as many sorcerers, and just plug in characters. Rubric Marines with Bolters instead, and Soul Reaper Cannon. Rubric Marines with the Warflamers right there. Another one, but this one is another Soul Reaper Cannon list and Soul Reaper Cannon. So they brought their bladers, their Bolters and Soul Reaper Cannons instead of all the Flamers. 1 unit of Zangos. A Rhino, of course, still got to bring the 2 units of Mutalisk Vortex Beast. And here's a Scribe. So these T-Suns are still, as you can see, he actually did lose this. It was a very close game. If you lose to 8, it's like a points difference thing that happens here. So it's not like a terrible loss right there. I don't think. Hopefully I'm right about that. But Orcs can still lose to T-Sun, guys, especially if you're not bringing just Squig Hog Boys all over the place. Let's see his 3rd matchup. Was into other orcs, so we just reflect off that. Beast Boss on Squigosaur, Mazrog, now on Smash Squig, Smash Squig, War Boss, and some more War Boss. Beast Snaggle Boys, still 4 trucks, 1 unit of knobs, 2 bricks of Squig Hog Boys, and a small one. Storm Boys. So this looks kind of like a list I would run. I don't think I would run 2 units of Beast Snaggle Boys without the Beast Bosses, so I'd probably just like drop him and some of the enhancements. But yeah, this is a very much viable orc list, and he still has the Weird Boy for the jumping and trying to score. So it's still a decent list, but he got the advantage out on it. I think his had more cohesion and kind of ability to synergize. But yeah, that shout out to Casper Whale. So we're going to his 4th matchup. Astra Milicarum. So these guys, the no touch, I don't know who they are, but they want you to look at them. So there you are. There's the thing if you want to look at them. Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar Leontis, Platoon Command Squad, Ursula Creed. So this is the same exact list we seen go into the other Ork player. So what happened is he lost the game. The Ork player, our current Ork player, Arik, lost his game. So he ended up playing the same guy that lost to the Bjorn, and then he ended up beating him too. So boom, he beat him as well. Bam. So we did go over that list already. I'm not skipping it. I just wanted to show you. So we get Big Chungus Necron supposedly. So Hexmark Destroyer, Technomancer, the Silent King, Scarabs, Canoptic Spiders. These are like a Forge World thing. They're not amazing, I believe, but for 75 points they could be good. Heavy Destroyer. I like them in their individual units. More utility for the Necron player. Monolith. So that's why he's at Chungus, because he brought all of the monoliths. I'm not sure how you get around the table, play the board that well. How did he end up doing? He put up, that's a pretty one-sided game when he has 18, almost 20 exact points. I can't really say much about that. I don't, that's a very skewed kind of meme list, but he was trying his hard at, I'm sure, and I'm sure it beat somebody. And we'll look at the Tyranids. So again, another invasion sleep. Again, what do we see? Hive Tyrant, Nero Tyrant, Death Leaper. And then we'll see One Knight. This list has both of them. All four of them, sorry. Barbgon still with reduced movement, Biovores, Carnifexes, Exocrine, Maliceptor. I think Maliceptors are excellent. They get the -1 bubble to hit. They give flat 3 damage in melee and in their psychic power. So these are something to look out for. Exocrines are just annoying and useful all the time. 2 Neurolictos instead of 3. And then Powervores just straight up, because for 30 points, I would always bring them 2. And then 2 units of Swarms. This list seems like it just doesn't have as much stuff to walk around the table. Carnifexes are not that efficient. You could just bring old One Eye by himself, and he's more efficient than those guys. So, but he did win 15 points right there. So those were the Ork lists. I wanted to show you them both. I want me to bring any more up that you've seen. We can go over them again. Remember, this is just a pretty kind of standard, nothing out of the box beast snagger list with Def Coptas in. Just decided to go for it. Maybe more durability. Not sure, but it was worth bringing up anyways. And then Bjorn with his kind of a bit different Ghaz Ghoul list with Mad Dog Grosnick, with the green tie, with the Ghaz calling the Waaaagh, give them all lethal, just running up there and just beating people up. So, and you still have the Mech Workshop, which is funny. He was just flexing on people with that. So Bjorn, you get my flavor of the week mark. Whoa! You get my flavor of the week mark. All right. So let me look at chats real quick, guys, and then you can give some statements, some closing thought, what you guys think after looking at this, some ideas, and then I'll give mine. But let me see what's going on. We get the whoa! Let's go. I'm feeling it, boys. I'm feeling it. My WAAAGH energy's through the roof after last weekend. You guys don't understand. Whoa! I guess you do understand. You keep wawing at me. All right, here's all the walls. I was like, man, no one's wawing at me today. Whoa! You guys gotta give me that wall. I don't understand what the delay was. Right, not like crazy, but it was pretty silent for a while. These lists did really well, and much respect to these fellas and Warballs, but I gotta say, these lists need more speed. Yeah, they need to go faster. Yeah, I can see that. I love it. Idea for first wall tech bat reps. Mech Shop 18 Def Coptas. I don't own 18 Def Coptas, but I do own the Mech Workshop. Meganobs are way better than those golden Umis. Yeah, for real. I think Meganobs are still being kind of looked down at a little bit. I can see why. Because Quick Hog Boys just seem like so much better answer, and for the kill sounds, you only get 2 attacks. But don't be surprised, as I said when we got the first data share released, if Meganobs start making them in the scene. Some people in the Discord are looking at 90-point units, which are just 3 Meganobs. Some people are looking at 2 of them, as you've seen actually on this list, or this guy went all out in the first list from MonkeyCon, I believe, where he had just straight up, 10, 15? I mean, how many Meganobs he did? He had 15 Meganobs, and he didn't bring the characters. You don't need the characters necessarily, guys, only Ghaz, in my opinion. I'm not even sure the ones are worth it, because then you can almost bring 3 more Meganobs for that cost. And even if you do bring the one with the force field, I'm under the impression a lot of times now in 40K, people are one-shotting your unit. When they decide they're going to kill something, they're going to really try to kill it. So even with his durability increases and such, I don't think you'll necessarily get the most out of them. You can just get 3 more Meganobs and almost make a whole other unit for the cost of those 2 leaders that you would typically have. You just have like 6 more Meganobs, right? So I can see why people started to bring that. The Warboss, I like him. I can see you still bringing him, but just having more Meganobs seems the way to be, because it's about how much firepower people have to put into you. If the Warboss had like some kind of better abilities than like he gets a 4-up feel no pain, very selfish. Plus one hit just isn't enough by itself. Just bring more Mega Knobs. I was thinking that too. I don't know if I was gonna bring this many. I definitely wasn't. But I really like seeing this list. I really appreciated it as it did shake things up a little bit. But I would also still bring Squighog Boys. But I'd probably bring a Brick with Ed Wappa Skill Choppa still. Just because that's me. I like having that way to destroy enemy vehicles. And the Gorkanaut. I'm so in love that he brought the Gorkanaut. Rapid Ingress from him if you got to. Whatever you got to do. It's great. Still have a couple trucks here. And I guess Ghaz was soaking up some of that firepower on Makari and that 2-up save. Not sure. But yeah, I think Mega Knobs are a little bit underappreciated. And I don't blame people for doing that. They haven't really showed out yet. But I'm definitely going to start using them more and start figuring this out. So, especially if they're the Assault on Black Reach Sculpt. I do have Assault on Black Reach Sculpt. Those are the ones I have. For the Revolution. Every list should have MIF 15 Mega Knobs. Dulpa gets it. All right, I appreciate you. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm definitely going to take at least minimum 5, if not move up like 6, 5, 6, whether somewhere in the 3-man units or just a straight up 5-man unit. But I'm already making lists. And it's funny enough, I was having the Gorkanaut only because the big boss sold him to me this weekend at the GT. So I was like, I got to use this guy. This would be awesome. And now I'm like, hey, I might really want to use this guy in the Mega Knobs. Was I onto something on accident? I don't know. After my last games, these Mega Knobs are a must for me. Yeah, it seems like they're the opposite of what other units do in 40K right now, where they one-shot people. Mega Knobs don't necessarily one-shot you all the time. Because of their weird point cost, people aren't necessarily trying to throw like their most valuable unit into them for 150 and commit. But when they do commit something, Mega Knobs have the chance to survive. And then the fact that they're very, very reliably wounding almost anything in the game, right? Even though you're hitting on 4s, having sustained 6s is mathematically about equivalent to hitting on 3s, right? It can go either way, but it could also spike. If you really have to in a 5-man unit, make it sustain 5s, you're definitely about hitting on 5s at 3s on that point. And then after that, you're essentially wounding most and pretty much all infantry in the game on 2s, just about. And then you're also re-rolling the wounds. So it's 2s or 3s, re-rolling the wounds for the most part for that 150-point unit, right? And so if you do go into something that can't one-shot it, which a lot of things can't, we for once have a unit that can take armor saves that are greater than 5+, because a lot of things in melee are going to be strength 7 or 6 or lesser, and they're going to have -2 AP. So art is nails. Boom, you have a great armor save. Ride the dice, baby boys. That's what we do here as orcs. We ride the dice. We don't have shenanigans. We're not tricking you on nothing. We tell you what it is. We come at you hard. We crump, and then we just ride the dice to victory. That's what orcs do. But yeah, I'm into Mega Knobs too. I love that the knots got real. Yeah, for real. Transport capacity intent. It's silly how little they could carry before this edition. Yeah, for real, right? I'm glad Gorgonauts got real, and they've corrected their transport. That's true. You can bring full units in there and actually feel good. So, Square Hammer went 3-0 this past weekend in my with my orcs. First 10th edition tournament win. Whoa! Great job, you get. That's exactly what it is. You should do in Discord. You can yell and whoa at us and tell us exactly what your list was. That'd be cool. Yeah, for sure. That's pretty awesome. When we're getting a ton of walls here, we go whoa, just keep walling with you. Yeah. So if you aren't already in the Discord, feel free to go in there and tell us what's going on. That'd be pretty awesome. Just for the heck of it, we like to hear everybody's ideas because we like to stay ahead of the meta here, right? We have the Death Killer War Trek and his Feel No Pain being talked about. Mega Knobs. The big boss is stuck on, hey guys, just a 4-up invuln from shooting on boys mobs is good. So yeah, there's a bunch of different things that everybody likes. Maz, 30 knobs, 2 war bosses, Painboy, 12 Squighog Boys, 2 Smash Quigs. Love that list. Bam. Yeah, we were talking about 20-man knobs. You went over. You just said all the way 3. Yeah, because I'm very much under the impression that you want your AP and the volume. Sure, you might wound some things on 5. You have outrageous volume if they're going to pretty much kill most things. And if they're not for that, they're not going to kill that. You use the Squighog Boys for that because they're definitely going to kill it because that's what they're built to kill. So I like that a lot. That's pretty awesome. And I love Maz. Wait. Thoughts on 4 Death Dreads with Scorches? I think it's playable. Go ahead and do it. It's just I'm in the impression that Death Dreads just aren't at the point cost they need to be. The 135 points just isn't where it's at. I don't appreciate where it's at. I would like it to come down at least 20 points, if not come down straight up 30 points. It's just Death Dreads are just way too little wounds. And yeah, you can't rely on the battle shock ability. But if you are going to bring them, Scorchers could be a way to actually try to get utility coming out the side of the, try to come out, poke out, I'm overwatch you, try to deter people. Not really sure, but it's, when you have redundancy in something, it can always work. That knob life. Yeah, you know we're all about that. Where's WAAAGHDAY up in here? WAAAGHDAY's over here punching the sky with his power claws. Yeah, whoa, because he was always talking about 20. He was at 30. Fantastic. Yeah. So I think that wraps up with that, as guys. So as my final thoughts, what I would say is Orks are in a great spot. Hold on, maybe I should get rid of this. You can look at my ugly face. Ooh, yeah. Whoa. So Orks are in a pretty good spot overall. We're sitting at about 51%. Hopefully, don't go below that. The meta is still developing, though. We got to see what these gunline armies are doing. Tau is a real problem. They have just volume of firepower. They love to just lay dice at you, even if they're wounding you on fives. They have just so much. And if they do hold you off until that turn 3, the Tetras are giving them so many rerolls that they just get super reliable and the volume gets crazy and outrageous. They just shoot you off the table. Even Squighog boys, to a certain extent, might have a problem with that if they end up letting them get to turn 3. Leagues of Voltan, they're coming up in the meta. Pressuring them, stuffing them in their deployment zone seems the way to play. Maybe a Death Killer War Trike with the Feel No Pain in there. Maybe more Beast Bosses on Squigosaur, so you can just tank some of that damage and get closer. Squighog boys can always be an option because that's overall what our index favors to an extent. But as you've seen today, there's other ways to play. You can use Mobs of Boys and Feel No Pains. You can use Mega Knobs. You can use Truck Spam and Boys. There's other ways to play. The straightforward way to play, though, sometimes is just Squighog boys because they're doing it all. They're taking it for you. They're occupying space for you. They're putting mortal wounds on people. They're putting volumes ice on people. They're putting high damage on people. They're just overall the answer to everything, but they're not the only way to play everything. So don't get discouraged by that. That's why I like to go over this, because you've seen there wasn't a list that was over here just spamming Beast Snaggle boys and Squigs, right? There's a lot of people that were using some, maybe using a big brick, maybe using 2 bricks, but there was not carrying any of these lists. There's a list that only had 2 3-man units. Mega Knobs are still viable. I'm glad that they actually did come up in the meta. It's funny, as soon as we started to see these changes, Mega Knob just came out of nowhere. And the data slate changes, and it's because people are realizing, hey, sometimes I have to stand in this terrain piece, but I need it to be something that can take small arms fire, something that the enemy wants to throw its reliable damage units into. Therefore, it's not going into my valuable units like Knobs or Squighog boys, whatever may flash gets, whatever it may be. Mega Knobs have found their way to be. You did see less flash kits being brought, and a part of me thinks because the -1 AP could end up being just a deterrent to some people, you know. So yeah, overall, Orks are doing great. Whoa! So as for where we're at on Wednesday, we're always going to go through this. We're going to follow this. These are just 2 weeks of tracking. That means we still have at least 2 more weeks to get a really good thought on it. And look, we'll see what kind of redundancies keep popping up. We'll see combinations keep popping up. As for me personally in the GT event, we're going to talk about that Friday. I'll give you my thoughts, my personal opinions and experiences. You know, my actual personal thoughts on what I was going in, how I felt about it all, the good and the bad, the ugly, stuff like that. So if you care at all, you can look and listen to me and talk about that. But this is for Meta Wednesday. That's why I didn't talk about it, because I was not the meta this week. Almost, but no, I did not. So look at the chat one more time. Make sure I didn't miss anything from you gits. Of course, I like to look at chats one more time before I go. Let's see. What's this say? Oh, I have a GT coming up this weekend, but my speed mob is still on the hobby desk. So I'm taking abdo studies. I'm taking the stunties. The stunties? What is that? The dwarfs? Is it the dwarfs? Always ingress one of your CC units versus shooting armaments is a must. Yeah, for real. Definitely. I was doing that this last weekend. I was rapid ingressing some of my stuff. So yeah, I'm glad. Hopefully you join Squarehammer, let you know who you are. I'm talking about it. We actually have a channel for tournament results where people can go over and talk about it, you know? Yeah, it is Leagues of Voltan. How dare you? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, of course. I have other armies too. But so everybody, thanks for being here. Greatly appreciated. Appreciate all the support. You can see we're back with more content. You see David's editing down his videos. He got to work right away. We're going to be coming out with more shorts. We're going to come out with, hopefully, bad reports to a certain extent here soon. So the content's coming. The content's getting real. I'm getting more games in than ever than before. I'm testing the limits of this index. I'm not limiting myself to just Beast Snaggle boys, even though they're great and I like using them too. I'm not going to limit it to that because that's not fun for us as a community anyways. So I appreciate you gits. But remember, don't cross a wall because we knock your teeth out. Whoa.